Okay, everyone. So I found this lovely video, relatively recently. This is from the channel The Nigerian Perspective. Wuthering Waves vs. Genshin. Why comparison is necessary. So I wanted to say, like, hey, let's take a look, see what he has to say, and see what what his thoughts are on this whole situation and tribalism with the two different gachas and just gachas in general. So let's take a look.
A ton of comments about comparison in the gacha space. And it's kind of funny how in one of the most competitive spaces online, people can get really uncomfortable with comparisons, especially between games like Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves. But here's the thing, I actually think comparisons are super important. I mean, in such a competitive environment, comparing games can never be a bad thing. On the contrary, it's actually a way to push boundaries and help each game grow. And I want to explain exactly what I mean in this video. So if you're into this kind of content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And I want to hear from you. What do you think about comparisons? Do you think comparisons are a good way to elevate gacha games, or do you feel the opposite? Let's get a discussion going on in the comments section below.
Personally, I definitely agree. Comparisons without comparing between one gacha and another in competition, definitely none of this would improve. So I would agree in that sort of respect.
And now, let's dive right into the video. Alright, so in this video, I want to specifically talk about the comparisons between Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves. And to really get into it, we need to take a little trip down memory lane. I've mentioned this in a few of my previous videos, but I think it's important to dive deep into Genshin Impact's history before Wuthering Waves even came into the picture, to really
All right,
get the
fair.
full scope of things. Now, we all remember the insane hype Genshin Impact had when it first dropped, right? But what I want us to really grasp is that there was a time when Hoyoverse completely dominated the gacha space. Like, Genshin Impact was the game. Nothing else even came close. It was the first of its kind in this massive open world gacha genre. And honestly, it felt like everything else was playing catch up. There was no comparison. Genshin was the top dog, and for a while that was unquestionable. Then eventually, Honkai Star Rail came into the picture, and on paper, this should have been great for competition. Finally, Genshin had some serious competition, but here's the twist. Both games were made by the same company, Hoyoverse, so in reality, Hoyoverse was competing with itself with Honkai Star Rail. I mean, there might have been different teams and different developers developing the game, but let's face it, they're still under the same Hoyoverse umbrella. So as
Yeah, and I would also state that they are all on the same side. So while different teams might be trying to outcompete each other, ultimately at the end of the day, it's all under the Hoyoverse umbrella. So they all follow the same sort of mindset, rather, or developmental mindset when it comes to developing their gachas.
As much as we wanted to see these two titans go head to head, it was more like watching a friendly internal rivalry. And really, that kind of competition can never really shake things up. Now let's talk about Wuthering Waves. I mean, we all know the story here. The game had a really shaky launch, like really shaky. From the get-go, there was a huge drop in revenue starting in the second month, and it wasn't long before a lot of players started dropping the game too. For whatever reason, it just wasn't clicking with them. And we all know what Crow had to do next. They were jumping through hoops, trying to figure out exactly how to keep players, keep the money flowing, and keep the game alive. It wasn't easy because they were basically in a catch-up mode for a long time, just trying to hold everything together. Then Venecita came along and things started looking up for them, but here's the interesting part. Recently, something shifted. Something that's actually been pretty beneficial for both Genshin Impact and Wuthering Waves. And that something is this rivalry between Skirk and Cardathea. So a while back, Skirk's animation got leaked online, and as expected, Genshin
I'm curious what he's gonna say with this. Definitely seems like an interesting take to potentially stoke the fire even more. But no, well, let's see what he has to say.
Impact fans lost their minds over it. I mean, to be fair, if this character had been shown to me 3 or 4 years ago, I would have been just as hyped. It's not really anything groundbreaking right now, but for hardcore Genshin fans, Kirk's animation was a chef's kiss, just solid. But here's the thing, the real kicker about the Skirk leaks wasn't the animation or the character design itself, it was the whole drama that followed. You see, when Skirk got leaked, there was this one TikToker who made a video about it and kind of stirred the pot. Then a few days ago, Wooden Waves dropped their own Cardathia showcase, and let me tell you, the animation demolished Skirk. I mean, it wasn't even close. The sheer detail and fluidity of her abilities, her attacks, and that ultimate animation, it blew Skirk out of the water. But here's the thing.
Oh, definitely, for sure. Cartethia's animations on both ways are really, really damn good. That's one thing with like Kuro is that a lot of their animations have always been actually pretty good. You just don't see a lot of people talking about it, especially like with PGR back in the days, because barely anybody plays PGR. Um, but they've always been making high tier animations, so that's definitely something I totally expected for a hyped up character such as Cartethia herself.
More than Cardathia being better than Skirk, what I really want to focus on is the shifts in the conversation. You see, as I said before, if Skirk had been released 2 or 3 years ago, everyone in the gacha community would have been calling it the greatest thing ever. Why? Because at that time, Genshin was really the only game in the gacha space that mattered. It would have been Skirk versus nothing. Genshin was the king, and Skirk would have been crowned the greatest, no doubt. But now, with this card theory, everything is different. Suddenly, no matter where you stand, whether you're a Genshin fan, a Wooden Waves fan, or someone who barely knows anything about either of the game, everyone online is saying Cardathia is better than Skirk. People are saying it's not just better in some ways, but it's better across the board. And yeah, this is a big win for Wooden Waves, but it's equally big for Genshin Impact. Why? Because this is the type of thing that has the potential to force Genshin Impact to step up. Having
Honestly, I don't think they will. Hoyo has their base of idiots, and well, not idiots, not because not all of them. Some people will be admittedly like, hey, they're shit, but still like their games. Obviously, those people aren't necessarily idiots. They just like what they like. But like the Chronically Online Hoyo gang, they are very there's quite a lot of them, and I doubt Hoyo's gonna change up anything to improve, and they will still sell their slop, and those people, those Chronically Online, will still take it all with all their money going straight. Like, yeah, we love that slop. Give us more of that slop. That's what their community is gonna be like, and Hoyo will just be fine. They'll just be being chillin', and unfortunately, that's just gonna keep the overall space looking worse, but hopefully, like with more games coming out, like Ananta, Do It Night Abyss, Silver Palace, etc., etc., these will hopefully chip more and more at these group of people, and then suddenly Hoyo starts saying, "Hey, they don't have as much money coming in. Maybe they should really start changing things up." But it's gonna take a long time for that to happen. So long as they still have hundreds of casuals that don't really pay attention to anything, or also their group of like diehard stans that will just keep spending thousands upon thousands of dollars on slop.
moments like these where people are openly comparing the two and calling out the differences is a great thing. For the first time, we have a clear, objective example where another game, Wooden Waves, is outshining Genshin Impact, and this is a game changer. Now, even with all this being said, I know there are still plenty of people out there who say, it's better to just enjoy the game for what they are, stop comparing the game, just have fun, yada yada yada. And honestly, I get it. It's easy to just chill and enjoy a game without all the back and forth. But for all of you still on the fence, I want to share something. I want to play a really short clip from a Gacha Smack video that I think perfectly defines what a gacha company really is. What
And knowing what this clip most likely is, yeah, I would definitely agree. Smack was totally right with that take, and yeah, well, let's go.
Gacha Smack says here is the perfect snapshot of the reality we are dealing with gacha games and especially with gacha companies. Here's the video.
Here's the thing, guys. The difference between the developers of all these different gacha games and how they're going to treat their community is based off of the hunger meter. How hungry are they? Are they starving? That's back here. Do they got some food on the table? Starting to experience a bit of contentment, a bit of complacency? Or do they got a fucking buffet? Is food falling off of the table to the point where they're able to sandbag, milk the cow, Hoyoverse level?
You see, whether it's Hoyoverse, Kuro Games, or any other gacha company, there is one thing that determines how well they perform, especially for their community, and that is hunger. I completely agree with that, and honestly, we're seeing this in real time. When Kuro Games
Honestly, if you would ever disagree with that, you're probably an idiot, like a complete idiot. If anybody ever disagreed with that opinion, that hunger and that ambition to do better, is like not good, or at least not what you would see a company in when it comes to like trying to produce good stuff. Um, yeah, I don't think anybody's gonna argue to the counter for that. Anybody with any sort of common sense, that is.
first dropped, they were hungry, and you could see it in the way they worked, in the way they communicated, and in the way they gave back to the community. There was a point where we as players had to say they should stop giving us so much free stuff, and honestly, it started to feel like they were spoiling us. And that was the
Well, I agree that they definitely gave a lot early on. I wouldn't necessarily say that I was one of the ones saying that. Well, I mean, you're not singling out me. I should probably rephrase that. What I should definitely say is that for like some of us that have been around with like gacha games in a while and PGR in general, none of us were really saying that they were giving us too much, at least for our little side of the things. But that's because we know what what gachas can be like. We know what it's like to be treated well in the gachas. Um, and give me a moment. Let me it takes me a minute to really figure out some words to say. I don't know. But basically, what I'm trying to well, let's continue on. I'll remember what I wanted to say probably in a couple seconds.
amazing. But then came the anniversary, and look, no matter how you feel about it, we can all agree that the anniversary rewards were a big letdown. If you compare those rewards to the early days of Wooden Waves, it's obvious something has changed. And why is that? Well, Kuro Games no longer has that hunger. They're no longer in that early struggle phase where they had to prove themselves. They've eaten now, and you can see that complacency in their anniversary reward. The hunger they had in the beginning had been replaced by a sense of we've made it, and we're seeing the results of that. And the same thing.
Yep, and I would agree. But basically, as I was trying to say earlier, for like those of us that know how companies can treat players, we weren't necessarily saying like we were getting spoiled too much earlier, but I definitely do agree that like some of the opinions from like people that had never had that experience before, like the people who really got into gachas with Genshin and shit. Those people definitely were saying that back then, so I could understand how that would be perceived as the prevailing community thought. But definitely, like for those of us that know what gachas can do with as far as generosity is concerned, none of us were really saying that Kuro was doing more than any other company. In fact, many of our cases, at least personally, in my opinion, that was probably at least the bare minimum that needed to be done to basically make Wuthering Waves a decent game for the most part overall, and just try to keep players on. So like the free rolls, the free 5 stars at launch and stuff, the Shangliao, that was the bare minimum to keep people invested. Just because of like how bad the 1.0 launch was, and overall a lot of the weird decisions that they chose with Wuthering Waves to be more like Genshin and less like, for example, their previous project, Punishing Grey Raven, or other games in general, as far as like how everything is styled and how the monetization is concerned. But yeah, nowadays with Wuthering Waves, Kuro is definitely like sort of like towards the middle here now, where they have a plate now. They're not overflowing and food is falling off the table like Smack said. But they're right like almost there in the middle. I'd say a little bit before it, because they did do a little bit of rollback with the complaints about the anniversary, but in my opinion, it still wasn't enough. So they're basically just barely trying to get by with the middle of the table, and ultimately I could see like how that could lead to the interpretation that eventually like Kuro might end up falling into that end larger side of the table where they have food falling off the table, just like Hoyo. And the ideal goal as a community is to never let Kuro get to that point. Because once they get to that point, that's when everything goes to shit, unfortunately. So that's why I've been a big proponent of improving the anniversary awards. That's why I've been a big proponent of being against what even content creators like Tectone and Glaive Keo and Saint Antas say, where the rewards needed a little bit of adjustment to be better. No, I think they still needed a lot of adjustment to be better. So like not just the extra 10 pulls each that we got, but more onto that. They should have at least added another like 30 pulls equivalent, either in Jades or actual pools itself. Like 30 limited is what I'm referring to. They should have added more of those into the events. I mean, not the events, into the anniversary awards before taking into consideration events and regular content from the patch. And that's my opinion. And that's what I think that should have been done, because we should have at least had like minimum of 80 limited pools before any patched contents like the QB Derby event and so on and so forth. So yeah.
Can be said about Hoyoverse, but the thing is, Hoyoverse has always been full. They have never experienced that hunger, and it shows in their approach to Genshin Impact. Since day one, we've all complained about Genshin, and why is that? Well, it's simple. Hoyoverse never really needed to change. They already had their loyal fan base, the players who would always spend, who would always feed into the system, and that hunger, they never had to face it. That's why, no matter how many complaints we had, the problems in Genshin never really got fixed. There was never any sense of urgency. But now, with Wooden Waves coming into the scene, it's a game changer. I mean, in the same year that Wooden Waves came out, Hoyoverse had the best live stream in Genshin's history, and that is not a coincidence. For the first time, Hoyoverse got a taste of what hunger feels like. They got a glimpse of what would happen if Withering Waves gained that momentum, and that sparked something in them. So now the question is, do you still believe we shouldn't have this competition? Shouldn't be pushing these companies to compete, to always one-up each other? Because I believe we all want to see what happens when Genshin gets that hunger. Genshin fans, are you telling me that you wouldn't love to see Hoyoverse hungry for the first time? Because we've already seen a little glimpse of what.
And I would agree. I've always been a big proponent for trying to have these companies like do better for that, both with Genshin from since it started personally, but even before Genshin, like I always been a big proponent for Hoyo to do better ever since Honkai Impact Third. Cause let me tell you a little story about Honkai Impact Third. If you don't know, the gacha in Honkai Impact Third very similar to like Genshin, but while characters are guaranteed after a certain amount of rolls and stuff, the way it works in Honkai Impact is to really maximize the amount of let me think. Words. I hate words. Well, it's not that I hate words, it's just I'm better at writing them than I am spitting them off rip. But the amount of, like, copies, for example, of a character that you needed to really, like, get tangible upgrades in Honkai Impact before, like, if you like the character specifically and not, like, for example, like, if you wanted to focus primarily on a main character that you wanted to main, rather than having to, like, get all the newest, shiniest things and so forth. To capitalize on that, you needed up to 11 copies to max. And that is with a 100 pool for pity. Granted, there is no 50-50 in Honkai Impact. There's never been that. But it was a lot. At least up to 11 copies in reference to like the main meta units that they released, the Herschers, and other awakened Valkyries. When it comes to like other normal S ranks and stuff, I think the number was around like 8ish, 9. But it was still like 100 pulls to get to max pity. And they only recently changed that down to 90 pulls, if I remember correctly. Yeah, 90 pulls. So it's now 90 pulls and stuff, but their power creeping has gone out the wazoo with the recent 2.0 series of Valkyries released in Honkai Impact. And while they did other improvements to at least make it more beneficial for like the low spender or free to play players, overall, if you try to like be meta in that game, you're not gonna be anywhere close to meta unless you're spending hundreds, even potentially even thousands of dollars every single patch, because they don't release like things like A ranks anymore, which you could grind up and are very useful like supports and stuff. They're not doing that anymore. It's all just been S rank, S rank, S rank, and every single new S rank is a meta DPS as well as a meta support. So it's really forcing like people who care about the meta in that game to really just keep on spending. So honestly, if you ever get into Honkai Impact, my biggest recommendation is no, do not, absolutely do not try to do anything with the meta. Just go for like characters that you like, and try to build those characters if you want to play them. The main benefit about Honkai Impact is that for like a lot of the story, you don't have to have any characters actually at all. Usually you'll get trial characters and other types of characters like that around. So really it's only for like the side content, extra content where you really can use your own characters. And that usually includes like the meta stuff, but ultimately I would say don't worry about competing in the meta stuff, even if it does end up leading to getting you more pulls eventually. Just do whatever the hell you want as a casual. That is the best way to enjoy Honkai Impact, personally, in my opinion. And the competitive aspect of it is just not worth getting into. At least not comparatively to, like, say, PGR, where people have a lot more ability to compete as a completely free-to-play with smart spending, basically. Because you can get every character in PGR from when you start on ad infinitum, so long as you plan your pools accordingly and know how to spend your rolls. And there isn't like any super valuable rewards locked behind the competitive modes or anything. It's just a little bit extra on top for like things here and there to like improve your account overall, but it's like nothing super major that's a game breaker, make it or change it sort of thing. So that's why PGR is a lot better in that respect. But Hoyo back in the day has always had kind of shitty systems.
What happens when they feel it. We've seen the result of a hungry Hoyoverse, and trust me, it feels so much better than the complacent Genshin we've had for years. I mean, Genshin giving you a free limited 5-star or a free 5-star weapon or a huge amount of primo gems. These are things that you all deserve for 5 years of support, 5 years of love. And
damn straight. Say it for everyone in the back.
5 years of always playing this game. So why not push for more? Why not want more from the developers? I mean, if we're being completely frank, competition is hands down the best thing that can ever happen to a gacha company, and I will always say that. And yeah, I know there's a lot of toxicity that comes with competition, but honestly, that is just a byproduct we have to live with. If it means we can keep these companies from getting complacent, if it pushes them to always strive to do better, why not? Because trust me, with this whole Cardothea versus Kirk debate, with the Cardothea leaks getting above 5 million views in a single day, whilst Kirk did not even come close to that, we're seeing something huge. And when these two characters actually drop, The hype around Calathea will force Hoyoverse to act. I'm telling you that they will have to do something, and I can almost guarantee that in the upcoming patches, especially as we head into Nordcry, you will see Hoyoverse do something completely unexpected, something good. So when it comes
So, for something completely unexpected, I would agree. Whether that's good or not, that is still up for debate. Personally, I'm a bit more of a pessimistic, or pessimist rather. And whether or not that something is going to be good is going to be really interesting to see. Ultimately, like, there are some good things here and there that they've been doing, especially like some quality of life changes. And if they've already updated the change that they said with like the potion thingy that lets you select your substats and shit, to where it would guarantee the upgrades at least twice into like each of the into the stats that you choose, then yeah, I would say that's definitely a good thing if that's already been implemented now. Um, and to see more features like that, like features like making sure that all the domains are accessible every single day, so that you could choose what you want to farm rather than having to be limited to this day or that day, or unlocking like the ability to do weekly bosses multiple times rather than having to do each one time a week. Adding features like that would definitely be great to see in Genshin. Will they actually do it though? Honestly, I'm very, very, very skeptical. We'll have to see what just happens with Nodcry, especially with Nodcry's 6.0 patch, I think. Yeah, I think it's like 6.0, not 5.0. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 6.0. We'll have to see with Nodcry's 6.0 stream, because that's going to be the most important stream that they're going to do, and that will be probably where they have their biggest updates that they're going to announce. Anything after that, I highly doubt that they're going to do anything super big or super important, especially considering that with like the whole recent changes that they were forced to do thanks to the FTC, like buying, they set it up so where buying rolls is actually more expensive than the previous packs that you use to convert into the gems to pull to make to then convert into wishes by about $10 more. So it does make me a bit skeptical that they're actually going to do anything particularly good with this. Especially since now that they added that direct wish purchase system, they're definitely trying to skim off the top of their players once again. So I'm very skeptical when it comes to Hoyo, especially given my very long history of being aware of them and surrounded by like what they do with their gachas since 2018, when Global Honkai Impact 3rd launched. But I digress.
comes to competition and comparisons between gacha games, if you want your favorite gacha game to grow, you've got to keep the developers hungry. Never let them get too comfortable. When you see a character who's better than another, don't criticize the comparison. Don't say, oh, let's just enjoy the game. You can enjoy them all you want in your own time, but on the internet, comparisons are what drives growth. And I promise you, if we keep this up, both of these companies will be forced to level up. But what do you think? Do you see any problems with comparing, or do you think we should just
Okay, so I absolutely agree. That was a great video. I recommend all of y'all to like, comment, and subscribe on to the Nigerian perspective, and likewise do so for me. As for like the title of this video, since this is as for like the title of my video specifically, and how this compares to like his title over here, the main difference I wanted to add to this that is slightly different from his little video here, and why I'm saying big gachas versus small gachas. I just want to add on top of this, and I even wrote it out before in a comment that I just recently posted on here, right here. So yeah, it feels great that we have people like the Nigerian's perspective, seeing how many people are making sense. I would even go to further and say we shouldn't just limit our scope to big games versus each other, but also smaller titles. You have no idea how much it triggered me to hear from the bigger CCs like Tectone, Glaive-Kyo, and St. Tontus that Wua's entry rewards were fine with the extra 10 rolls we got each, and that they should only need to change the banner system and it would be perfect, while at the same time trying to devalue anyone's opinion that tries to call them out on how that take is not enough, and saying that anyone that thinks Kuro should make their anniversaries like Limbus Company, Nikkei, Grand Blue Fantasy, Punishing Grey Raven, etc. are just being greedy and stupid. And that rhetoric would in turn get propagated by their communities because their fans are all a bunch of yes men that only know gachas since Genshin entered the scene. Now that isn't to say that Tectone doesn't know just Genshin and stuff, because he has been around for about 11 years, give or take. But like really is where he got Genshin is where he got like super big into gachas, and that's where a lot of his biases stem from, and is a lot of his perspective. So his perspective on like this rule rewards and stuff, is not really that good or conducive to improving the space. It's only conducive to making everything just slightly more bearable, basically. And that's what I basically say here. And overall, it's to my opinion that Tectone's gang's opinion that so long as it's better than Hoyo, no matter how slightly, it's fine, is ultimately damaging to the space as a whole, since that justifies gacha companies to perpetuate this current standard, which is almost in all senses to me worse than the standard set previously from before Hoyo became a big player in the space. And it's like really how Hoyo manages everything that really got me off of like playing their games initially since 2018. While I'll admit it is hypocritical of me to say that I have played these games and stuff to a decent amount now, but I was always ambivalent and sort of kept Hoyo at a distance since 2018 because of how shit like they managed their gacha back then. And even with the improvements, I will give them credit where it's due. They've definitely made a lot of improvements over the years, specifically to Honkai Impact 3rd. There's still not enough, though, comparing with like other gachas, like the ones that I mentioned, that are both old and new into the scene, and how things could be better all around for the space if these companies just focused more on trying to treat their players well. But that's my takes. If anyone wants to agree, disagree, comments, definitely please like the video, comment, subscribe, or maybe we'll get on to like a podcast and talk about this. I'm always open up to talking, and I would love to hear more opinions on this. Thanks, and y'all have a good one. Bye-bye.